Welcome back to the channel. And to celebrate the holiday season today, I'm going to be ranking my top 10 favorite Christmas movies and specials not named Die Hard.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
As I just said, this list is not necessarily the top 10 best movies, but my top 10 personal favorite. So if your favorite holiday movie isn't on this list, let me know in the comment section down below. Put your 10 favorite down there. Which 10 movies or specials get you in the holiday spirit? Now, before we get started, I do have one honorable mention, and that's Violent Night. The reason why this one's not in my top 10 yet is because I only seen it once, and I can easily see this one taking over the number 10 spot next year after a few more viewings. If you haven't seen this movie is primarily Die Hard meets Santa Claus, where a family is held hostage by Scrooge and his gang, and Santa Claus inadvertently stumble upon what's going on he has to save the day. And it's a really pretty kick-ass violent movie. But because I've only seen it once, I cannot put it in the top 10 because it's not a movie that I look forward to every year. Not yet, but I can see it moving in there. But with that out the way, let's continue on.
And here we go.
Coming in at number 10, and for me, it's 1974's Black Christmas. Now, this is a horror movie channel, so what did you expect? I had to have at least one horror Christmas movie on this list. Black Christmas is pretty much regarded as the first slasher, even though technically I consider Psycho as the first slasher, but this is the first modern day slasher. And it's sad to say that this movie, which came out in 1974 before I was even born, even though there's 3 movies in this franchise, it still is the best and still hold up to today. Now, I will admit, on this list, this is probably the one movie, while I do enjoy it, I don't necessarily have to watch it every year because this movie is kind of dated just a little bit. And if you've never seen this movie, it is a little hard to get into because it is a little slower pace. And the acting is your typical 70s, early 80s acting. And it's just a little different. But it's a movie that I hold dear to my heart. And I do think it's one of the best horror Christmas movies that we ever got. So moving on right after that, coming in at number 9 is the only TV special on here. And that's A Charlie Brown Christmas. Now, Charlie Brown Christmas, while it may be technically the worst TV show or movie on my list, it's just here for nostalgic reasons. This TV show takes me back to my childhood. Every time I watch it, it makes me feel like a kid, put a big smile on my face. It's only 30 minutes long. Unfortunately, the only way you can watch this now is through Apple TV. It used to come on network television yearly. And that little slate where they'll show this along with Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But every time I see this, it just takes me back to being a child. I used to always watch those. It used to always come on like a few days before Christmas, and it really got me into the Christmas spirit. And I can't help but to smile when I watch this show. So A Charlie Brown Christmas, number 9. Coming in at number 8 is an all-time classic, and that's the original Home Alone with Macaulay Culkin. Now, what else can be said about this movie other than this is really a cult classic, and this is one of the few movies that on this list I remember when it came out, while I was still young enough to enjoy it, but yet old enough to understand everything that was going on within the movie. And it's just a classic Christmas movie about a young boy who accidentally get left home by himself when his family go on a trip to France or Paris, somewhere, something like that. And during this time, some burglars find out that they were supposed to be out of town, but unbeknownst to them, when they go to break in this house, Macaulay Culkin's character Kevin is still there, and he sets a bunch of booby traps, which is probably what this movie is known for. The last 15-20 minutes where he's setting these traps for the burglars. And looking back at it, it's actually kind of violent, but it's funny. It's one of those movies that I had on VHS growing up, and me and my brother kind of wore the tape out. So Home Alone is always near and dear to my heart. and it sits here at number 8. Now right after that, at number 7 is the classic movie Elf starring Will Ferrell. If for some reason you haven't seen this movie, right after watching this video, go check it out. It's on one of the streaming networks. This movie was an instant classic the moment it came out. Will Ferrell is hilarious, even though his comedy may not be suited for everyone, since this is a family film centered around Santa and the elves. I think this is easy for the whole family to get into. And the funny thing about this, Will Ferrell is a very big guy. He's like 6'6", 6'7", somewhere in that neighborhood. Don't quote me on that. I know he's pretty tall. But for the reason that he's raised by elves, he believes he is an elf. So that put him in funny situations. You got this big, huge, hulking man that thinks he's a elf for Santa's workshop. He go on a quest to find his real father, who's an uptight businessman. And it's just one of those classic, easy get into family comedies that you can watch with the whole entire family. So Elf, number 7. Coming in right after that holding down the number 6 spot, is a little movie that I found several years ago, and I've pretty much watched it every year since it's been out. And that's 4 Christmases, starring Meg Ryan and Vince Vaughn. Now this movie tells the story of Meg Ryan and Vince Vaughn's characters. They are supposed to go on a trip to avoid their families, but when their flight get canceled, they're seen on television and their families call, so they have to go to Vince Vaughn's parents, who are separated, to their 2 houses for Christmas. And then they had to go to Meg Ryan's parents, who are also separated, their houses for Christmas. So therefore, that's 4 trips, and the reason why it's called 4 Christmases. And this movie is funny as hell. If you like Vince Vaughn, the way he do comedy, this is him in his prime, his peak. And Meg Ryan is a good counterpart to his character. And the little adventures that they go on, just visiting each other's families, is hysterical. And it's just a good time watching a movie where I wouldn't recommend this one with the family, but for teenagers on up, gather everybody around, watch this movie. 4 Christmases, number 6. And continuing on with the list, holding down the number 5 spot is a movie that I consider to be a classic, and that's Christmas with the Cranks, starring Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie followed them too, as they plan on skipping town for Christmas because their daughter is grown up. She's moved away. They don't want to be in town, so they plan this trip. And at the last minute, they find out their daughter coming to visit, but they're totally unprepared. So they cancel their trip and they go on this wild chase to make this traditional Christmas that their daughter is used to. And it just put them in a bunch of funny situations. So it goes without saying, this is one of the more popular Christmas movies. Not popular as my number 4, but Christmas with the Cranks is a movie that I definitely look forward to every year. Now we're here at the top 4 movies, and all 4 of these are movies that are must watches for me. I would not skip a Christmas without watching these. All of these movies been out for several years, some even before I was born, with the exception of one movie is probably 2 years old, but it touched me as soon as I seen it. So coming in right now, the number 4 spot for me is the newest movie on this list, and that's 8-Bit Christmas. Now, I went in more details in my ranking of the movies of 2022. 8-Bit Christmas is a movie that, while it's a lighthearted tale about a kid on his quest to get a Nintendo, it's something that really hit home for me. It's set back in the 80s, so that was during my childhood, and I do remember the hype of Nintendo. So you miss Nintendo and Christmas, it's just gonna take me back to my childhood. And the crazy adventure him and his friends go on is also hilarious. This is another movie that you can watch pretty much with the entire family, and it don't end the way you would expect, but it's a good time, and it's definitely a movie that I've added to my Christmas list. So that's 8-Bit Christmas.
This is our Vietnam.
I don't think that means what you think it means.
I have no idea what it means. We're gonna get in so much trouble.
Sometimes during Christmas, just when you think that all hope is lost, something magical happens.
And coming in right after that, the number 3 spot, it's an all-time classic, and that's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Now, I don't need to go into detail about this movie. This movie has been around for a while. This is probably most people's top 2 or 3 Christmas movies of all time. So National Lampoon is an all-time classic. It's a movie that I really love and adore. And surprisingly, it's a movie that I didn't see until maybe 10, 15 years ago in its entirety. But ever since then, it's a movie that I love, and it's definitely a must-watch in my household. So National Lampoon Christmas Vacation #3.
Basket.
Let Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Imogene Coca, Randy Quaid, John Candy, and Christy Brinkley.
Well, are you gonna go for it?
This is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy.
Take you for a ride. This summer, when you think vacation, think National Lampoon's Vacation.
Coming in at the #2 spot is a movie that I definitely have to watch every Christmas. Matter of fact, I've already watched it this Christmas season, and that's Deck the Halls. Deck the Halls is a movie starring Danny DeVito, and I really can't think of the other guy name, but he's been in several things too, where they're neighbors, where Danny DeVito is a neighbor that move in, kind of take over the neighborhood, take the glory from his neighbor, and then he go on this silly quest to set the record to let his house be seen from space with Christmas lights. And it's just an all-time great movie. Now this is one that maybe you cannot watch with the little children, but it's definitely a funny movie, and a movie that I have to watch every single year. But the #1 Christmas movie for me, not named Die Hard, is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Jingle All the Way. Now, for Arnold Schwarzenegger to be known as, during this time frame, the biggest action hero ever, pretty much, he actually do have some good comedic chops. When he decided to do these family-friendly movies, the comedies, he kind of shine in those roles. And I think a part of that had to do with the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger is known so much for being an action, big, hulking guy, that when he showed his softer side, his comedic side, it really stands up. He kind of look a little out of place, what adds to the comedy. But this movie is just a good, wholesome movie. It tells the story of Arnold and his child. It's a toy that his kid wants. Arnold is kind of a busy businessman where he's into his job. He kind of forget to get the toy, so he have to go out on Christmas Eve to retrieve the toy, and he bump into Sinbad. And even though this toy is sold out, they go on this crazy manhunt for it. And it just accommodates in a good action scene because it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can't get away from the action. But Jingle All the Way is not only definitely one of my favorite Christmas movies, it's just one of my favorite movies of all time. And this is #1 on my favorite Christmas movies not named Die Hard. So what do you guys think? Do you like my list, or there's a couple of movies that you think should have been on here? Remember, these are just my opinions. So let me know yours in the comment section down below, and keep your eyes open for my next video.